Hello, my friends, and happy Wednesday. Hope everybody's week is rocking and rolling, getting over that hump nicely. A few more days, and then we've got the weekend ahead. Before we get there, we've got some headlines to attend to as usual here. We've got Joe Biden was out today. I don't know if this was a planned statement or what, but he calls the MAGA crowd the most extreme organization in history. We'll fact check that a little bit. We're going to cover some of the Supreme Court stuff. We know that there are riots taking place in different parts of the country. LA happens to be one of them. So we'll go through that. There was a big win in Ohio yesterday. JD Vance is now going to be at least contending for the Senate race. And Donald Trump is very, very winning in terms of his record of his endorsements. So we'll cover a lot of that. As always, we'll check in with some of the comments over from locals. We'll make sure we check some of the YouTube member comments and we'll get into business. We have a quick update though. We've got a Durham update because trial starts in about a week and a half. And so I just did a video on that separately, but we have a very interesting, just quick update that came out. We talked about the motion to compel that the government prosecutors filed. Hillary Clinton, Fusion GPS, Perkins Coie, Sussmann, all of them wanted and opposed this motion. They wanted to keep this stuff out. They didn't want the judge to even look at their documents. Well, guess what? Judge came out and granted Durham's motion to compel the production of documents. So Hillary and the whole side got to produce their documents, send it over to the judge for an in-camera review. We're going to be covering this case in depth. And as usual here, we're going to go to the mind map. So did a full video going through this entire mind map. Make sure you check that out if you're interested in it. Trial is just right around the corner. We see jury selection starts on May 16th. May 11th, we've got jury questionnaires going out. That's 1 week from today. So it's about to get rowdy over there in DC. Sussmann, Hillary, Durham, the whole thing. So we'll cover all of that. But let's go back to Joe Biden here, because he had this very interesting statement that he put out earlier today. Disclosed TV is sharing this with us. And Joe Biden is
that got struck down.
Talking all sorts of garbage against MAGA, or I think as he says, MAGA. Let's listen.
Oh, that got struck down. Griswold was thought to be a bad decision by Bork, and my guess is the guy's on the Supreme Court now. What happens if you have state changes the law saying that children who are LGBTQ can't be in classrooms with other children?
Is that Roe versus Wade?
Is that legit under the way that the decision is written? What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history.
Okay, so let's make sure that we understood that correctly. The most extreme political organization that has existed in American history. That's a big statement. My goodness, there's been some extreme organizations here. We've talked about some of them, but the MAGA crowd is being in that category. My goodness. Now, there are people like Joe Biden who would say, Rob, hello, they almost seized the country. They took that podium, which means they almost controlled the nuclear arsenal. But I don't believe that for a minute. And I think the people who do are sort of deluded. But they're free to believe that because that's America. Now, I know that we're used to Joe Biden not being somebody who is coherent. We're used to him saying things off the cuff and flippantly, just mumbling about the Himalayas running through the hilltops with Xi Jinping naked or whatever. The whole thing is just sort of, we all just ignore it. It's just Joe Biden being Joe Biden. But stuff like this is really consequential. The crowd is the most extreme political organization that has existed in American history. That's a bold statement. He's the president of this country. He should be accountable for the words that come out of his mouth. Nobody cares anymore, but he should be, because this is offensive. There are a lot worse organizations than people who put on a red hat and go vote for a political candidate. To say that one is the same as the other minimizes the importance of the thing that is actually extreme and wrong. If you say they're the same, then it's saying that the thing that is really bad is not that bad. It's just the same as everybody else. For example, we had a very extreme organization called the KKK that existed in this country. Joe Biden is very familiar with the KKK. Here's a photograph and a story of Joe Biden holding hands with former KKK leader Robert Byrd back on Inauguration Day. We see the photograph here. Says somebody on Twitter, let's not forget Joe Biden gave the eulogy of KKK recruiter Robert Byrd, and that he was somebody who was actively involved in the KKK. Joe Biden is saying that the MAGA crowd is more extremist than the KKK. And that may be true because apparently he doesn't think that they're all that extreme whatsoever, holding hands with the guy. But there have been some other organizations also problematic throughout the country. We remember these protests that we cover at length here on this channel when they were unfolding right in front of our eyes. And we know that we can sort of do a compare and contrast between two entities. Things like, I don't know, Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd protests, the riots, whatever the Summer of Love was. We can also say, take a look at the worst thing that ever happened in American history, which was Insurrection Day, when the country was almost seized by a bunch of MAGA people. But when you sort of compare and contrast the damage and the consequences, you often forget about all of the Summer of Love. Here we had 19 plus people dead. Not that many people died on Insurrection Day. Arrested, 14,000 plus arrested all across the country. Property damage, 550 million in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Alone, 1 to 2 billion in insured damages throughout the rest of the United States, May 26 to June 8, 2020. Was that amount of damage the same, equivalent to what we saw on Insurrection Day on January 6th, the day that liberty almost left us? I don't think so. I think that what we see here are political opportunists selecting and choosing the extremist groups to proffer forward a narrative that supports their agenda. And it's offensive when both sides do it. But speaking of riots, we're back at it again. We saw that outside the Supreme Court, a lot of Democrats very angry about what's happening with Roe versus Wade and the leaked opinion that came out from Judge Alito. Did a full video on that. But Breitbart is reporting this as riots in Los Angeles now. It's going coast to coast as pro-abortion activists confront police. Well, I don't know if this is legal now. I think it's legal now to confront police, and these are not insurrectionists. So it just kind of depends on the issue, I suppose. Breitbart reporting violent demonstrators attacked police, peacefully probably, vandalized a sidewalk, and smashed a local business on Tuesday in protest to the Supreme Court's impending decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. The gathering was initially peaceful as several hundred people gathered in front of the federal courthouse in downtown LA. We have some video here from some Twitters.
What you make when you capitulate? Right here, right now, into the streets, rise up for abortion rights. Women is what they want. Control over women is what they want.
The system is sexist. Fight for socialism. What does that have to do with abortion? And what does that have to do with the sexist system? Socialism is going to fix all of it. Great. So let's see what else we have. Chief Michael Moore, LAPD Chief Moore says, we are facilitating a group of 250 people walking from Federal Building, Broadway to First, Pershing Square. Route's going to move a little bit. Expect delays. Receiving an update. A segment of the group began to take the intersection. Now, I know you may have thought that he was going to say insurrection there, but he says intersection. So not the same thing. We attempted to communicate clear and provide dispersal order to the group. Crowd began to throw rocks and bottles at officers. One officer injured, unknown to what extent. So it sounds like for sure an insurrection is brewing there. Los Angeles Times reported someone also sprayed graffiti in front of City Hall and they attacked police vehicles. Yeah, so maybe the Capitol Hill Police can rein in on there, or the Justice Department can create a new bureau for their, well, they already have new bureaus. They created the new domestic homegrown violent extremist category at both the DOJ and the FBI. Do you think that they're parachuting in here to unravel what's happening here? No, of course not, because this is not what they were created for. They were created to go after MAGA. Here's another one from Katie Davenport. Court says now LAPD attempt to arrest pro-choice protesters, but they fail as they're being mobbed by rioters. All right, so this video is actually pretty violent. So I'm not going to play a lot of F-bombs flying around in there, but let's take a quick look here. You can see this officer is chasing and tackling this guy. And then the crowd comes upon him and he's sort of swinging at him. Get out of here, get out of here. Now the crowd is going to be overtaking him. And then the officers are going to, nope, he's sort of losing control. And both officers are up now. And the suspect that was being arrested is now gone. So those are two police officers under attack. And we'll see if we have MSNBC screaming from the rooftops about this for the next 12 months. I doubt it. Here's another one from Vishal. Says the pro-choice march has arrived at Pershing Square in downtown LA. Speeches and chants. See some more speeches and chants. We have Kamala Harris is chiming in. Finally, we have some clarity and some vision on an issue. Here it says this is the time to fight for women and our country with everything we have. Here's my statement on the Supreme Court. The United States has now confirmed that the draft is genuine. Roe ensures a woman's right to choose to have an abortion. It's also, at its root, it protects a fundamental right to privacy. What is clear is that opponents of Roe want to punish women and take away their rights to make decisions about their bodies. Republican legislators in cities across America are weaponizing this law. The rights of Americans are at risk if the right to privacy is weakened. Every person could face a future in which the government could interfere with personal decisions you make about your life. This is the time to fight for women and for our country with everything we have. So Kamala is laying down probably the stepping stones for the next campaign if she is somebody who is even remotely competent to run as president. A little more information about the leaker over from the Washington Examiner. This one coming out May 3rd says the unprecedented leak is signaling the end of Roe versus Wade. Judge Roberts ordered an investigation, but several people have been looking through this now. Other legal watchers, they're raising caution about jumping to conclusions, saying, I don't necessarily know if this could lead to criminal charges. Very interesting thread over from Will Chamberlain on Twitter, and he's saying a big disclaimer on this. When we're talking about the leaker, he says, look, I have no inside information. This thread is pure speculation based almost entirely on publicly available information. I could easily be wrong. Cool? Cool. And so I think I'm going to just adopt that. This could all be wrong. This is all publicly available information, but if you follow the breadcrumbs, ooh, it looks like it might be a good one. Here he says, meet Elizabeth D. She's currently a law clerk for Judge Breyer, who is leaving, who is exiting. So where's she going to go? I don't know. But now it says, in my humble opinion, she's the most likely person to have leaked the opinion. Why? Well, her academic background isn't that uncommon for a Supreme Court clerk. Yale Law, 2 British master's degree, Cambridge, typical. Do note the master's degree, though, in gender. Oh, Elizabeth D. over on LinkedIn saying, here it is, master's degree, the London School of Economics and Political Science, Master of Science, gender. And we also see from Yale, she was on some sort of a society or activity, the Women's Center. And so, okay, somebody very interested in that topic. But Will Chamberlain continues, says, here's where things start to get interesting. Every law student has to write a note. It's a long legal research paper, usually making a novel argument about the law. It's true, I had to do that. Elizabeth D. wrote hers about, reproductive rights and abortion. Here's what it says. Expanding conscience, shrinking care, the crisis in access to reproductive care, and the Affordable Care Act's non-discrimination mandate, written by Elizabeth B. D. The Yale Law Journal. We've got more. It says specifically, she argued that Obamacare's non-discrimination provision should be interpreted to force Catholic hospitals to perform emergency abortions. Aggressive argument, but hey, that's what you do in these papers. And so please go read the rest of Will's tweet. Of course, coming all the way to the end, he finds her New York Times wedding announcement, says in that wedding announcement, says she clerked for a judge, Nina Pillard. Nina Pillard was appointed by Obama, very, very pro-choice, not shocking at all, was there as a clerkship for a year, went over to the ACLU working on abortion, says we go back to the New York Times wedding announcement now that we know where she's been. She's married to this guy, Isaac Arnsdorf. He just got hired by the Washington Post as a national political reporter. He's on the Trump beat. And where was he before that, before he went over to WAPO? Oh, he worked over at Politico, sharing a same byline with Joshua Gerstein. Gerstein's the same guy who actually got the document and published it on Politico. So Will Chamberlain, don't want to jip the whole thread. Go please follow him at Will Chamberlain. It's a real good thread if you want to connect the dots. And he may be onto something here. Stephen Breyer's on his way out. She's the clerk for Breyer. Her husband is a reporter, a journalist now, and he used to work with somebody over at Politico. She gets it, leaks it to him. He gives it to Politico. It gets published. What does she care? Supreme Court's already, her position's gone because we've got a new judge coming in. So very interesting little story there. And of course, Will Chamberlain did a great job on that. Little election news from yesterday. J.D. Vance wins the Ohio Senate nomination after the Trump endorsement. A lot of people had their eyeballs on this. I wasn't paying too much attention to it other than to sort of see how the Trump contingent, the MAGA contingent, as Biden called it, fared last night, and looked like it's going pretty well, actually. Here, J.D. Vance won. He's going to go on to face Representative Tim Ryan in November, who won the Democratic nomination for Senate. The state's Democratic Party earlier this week said The Republican's going to be damaged coming out of this primary. And so we'll see what ultimately happens with that race in November. But as far as Donald Trump goes, he's now 55-0 after last night. No endorsements lost. Wow. So people saying that Donald Trump is riding off into the sunset, he's a dead asset, I think are wrong so far, or he's just really good at picking winners one way or the other. Former President Donald Trump might want to reconsider opening the Taj Mahal. We see here the headliner from yesterday's election was the surprising victory of J.D. Vance, 37-year-old first-time candidate endorsed by Trump. He's 55-0 now in midterm primaries. Undeniable proof that his endorsement matters. Marjorie Taylor Greene's happy about this. We see Donald Trump Jr. chiming off about this. Other people are wanting his endorsements. And here's the list. An asterisk indicates a runoff, but Trump's endorsed 55 gubernatorial, Senate, House, and local candidates. Seems like they're all doing pretty well. See this big, long list of them. And we'll see how those continue to fare as the election season continues. We know that if the balance of power changes, it might change a lot what the Democrats can do. They might have the White House, but they may not have the House of Representatives. And what happens if they don't have the Senate? Well, they've got some activity to take care of right now while they do have power, but they're not going to be able to do things that are really consequential. We see here town halls reporting that Manchin and Sinema, even though the left is sort of in meltdown mode because of the new leaked draft from the Supreme Court, they're trying now to see if they can codify this. California's saying we're going to make an amendment, and we have movements now to codify Roe versus Wade, make it a statute. Go to Congress and say, if the Supreme Court's going to dump it, can you just implement it into law? Maybe what you should have done in the first place if you wanted it, not done it through the Supreme Court. But you need the Senate to do it in order to get it passed. And here, it's probably not going to happen. Two Democratic senators, Manchin and Sinema, according to the town hall, just killed the hopes of codifying Roe versus Wade. This week, Democrats Manchin and Sinema of Arizona, shout out, said, no, we're not going to crush the filibuster just for you. Sinema posted this on Twitter, said, a woman's healthcare choices should be between her, her family, and her doctor. Overturning Roe versus Wade endangers the health and well-being of women across America. Protections in the Senate safeguarding against the erosion of women's access to healthcare have been used a half dozen times in more than the past 10 years, and more important than ever. Throughout my time in Congress, I've always supported this, and I'm going to co-sponsor a bill, part of the Women's Health Protection Act. I'll continue to work with anyone to protect women's ability to make their decisions. So Sinema saying that we're just going to have to go get the votes. So here you can see it says, again, norm-shattering Democrats called for the termination of the filibuster, which means that you need 60 votes to move a bill forward. And what the Democrats want Sinema and Manchin to do is get rid of that rule so that we don't have to hit that 60-vote hurdle. But again, Manchin and Sinema, they're not having it. Sinema saying, well, I'll help you with this. We can move forward and women's productive rights and all of that, but we got to get to that 60-vote threshold because that's the rule in the Senate and it's there for a reason. Sinema has staunchly defended the procedural hurdle amid crushing pressure from Democrats on her own side, even calls of violence against her. But if she and Manchin won't change sides or won't agree to break that rule, the Democrats don't have enough people in power to codify abortion or anything like that. So they would need that rule to be broken in order to do it. Because the two Democrats, the people they need in order to break that rule or rewrite that rule, won't do it, they're stuck. Let's jump over to locals and see what we've got here. Grouchy old cat lady is in the house sharing a video about Elon's new toy. Apparently it's a Tesla phone, which would be pretty cool. We have Mr. MVP talking about the court order granting immunity to Fusion GPS, and Laura Sego has been unsealed. And I just made a video about this, Mr. MVP, and it's coming out sort of simultaneously with this one. But I was hitting refresh, I said in that video, multiple times to actually get the documents. This was actually the one that you're linking is document 72. That was the document that was filed, some time ago. Actually, this was back on April 19th. But that's the motion to seal. What we're waiting for is the actual document that is not sealed. And I don't think that we have that yet. If we have it, I want to see it. I was hitting refresh like a lunatic. Tammy is here sharing a very interesting change.org petition to have Zelensky named the Time Person of the Year and get the Nobel Peace Prize, which is probably already a foregone conclusion. I mean, let's be real about that. Another one from Stookie saying that George Soros, sharing a link over from the Daily Mail, Soros, Clinton, and Obama staffers in Europe pen an anti-Musk letter, which is not surprising at all. Musk is really irritating the standard flow, the status quo, and they're not happy about it. Stuckey is talking about Mayorkas being in congressional hearings today. Bureaucratic department heads have been in hearings with Congress asking for budget requests. Mayorkas is the most lacking in dignity. Whenever asked a hard question, the response is always that no improvement can be made unless Congress approves billions of dollars, which is just typical. It's bureaucrats. Another one from Stuckey says there's a theory out there that Biden is faking dementia as a way of avoiding consequences for his treason, selling the USA out. Anybody watch his comic routine at the White House Correspondents' Dinner? I saw a couple of those clips on Twitter, but I didn't really watch it. I saw the one where I think awareness is really what it comes down to. You know, they just live in this bubble. Ron Klain, the White House chief of staff, every day is on Twitter retweeting all the people that are like saying they take a chart and they manipulate the chart to make them feel good about the data, which is horrible. And then Ron Klain's like, oh, that makes me feel good. Retweet, retweet, retweet all day. That's all they do. So I'm not sure they even have any idea that the rest of the country and world is laughing at them. He delivered the jokes like a pro with perfect timing. Impressive. Most cannot perform the... so this is actually a positive comment on the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Here's the edited version of his shtick. Look for an uncut version. Tell me, is this man not on top of his game? So Stuckey's saying he's throwing us all for one. That Joe Biden is just totally there. He's actually completely coherent. All that mumbling, jumbling, the hills of Himalayas with Xi Jinping taking showers together, whatever he said, is all just fake. We have Grouchy Old Cat Lady is talking about child support in very, very gruesome types of cases. Mr. MVP is here, said that Durham just won the first part of the fight. Yeah, we talked about that in the video. So Durham's motion to compel has been granted. All of those documents going to be coming over to, it's not really going to be to Durham specifically. It's going to go over to court. Yeah, exactly. Technofog has it right. The court's going to take a look at the documents and then determine whether Durham will get the documents. And Technofog says, yeah, Durham's going to get the docs. Yeah, because it's not privileged. We did a deep dive on that in the video. And on the mind map on this, but I guess while we're on it, the mind map here. So what's happening here is a Fusion GPS, Perkins Coie, we have Hillary Clinton, all these different assets, Rodney Jaffe, Tech Executive One, everybody is now chiming in and they're saying, wait a minute, John Durham doesn't have permission to get access to documents that took place between Perkins Coie and Fusion GPS, or Perkins Coie and Hillary for America, and Perkins Coie and Rodney Jaffe, or any of these things. Basically, once it hits the law firm, this law firm, Perkins Coie, we can close this up, just shields everybody because it's a law firm. And why? Well, it's because all these people were working on legal cases, and legal cases are protected by attorney-client privilege. As long as you're doing work for a legal case and it's a client, you can go hire expert witnesses and consultants and all of this. I explained that in the video. But here, they weren't doing legal work. They were doing opposition research to try to take out Donald Trump. They were creating narratives, fake stories, steal dossiers, hoaxes. They might as well have been writing, a fictional novel. It's not legal work. So therefore, it's not privileged. It's not protected. So John Durham's trying to get it. They all filed motions to intervene. There was like a panic meltdown level 10 at all of these different entities. John Durham won. And we mentioned that. We showed this at the beginning on 5-4. Judge is going to take a look at it. It's going to be an in-camera review, and then it will go back out. If the judge says that the prosecutor should get it, they'll get it, and I think that they will. A couple more here. We had Grouchy Old Cat Lady says, just for the fun of it, a link over on YouTube, so go check that out. We have another one. We had the CDC story. I saw this headline. They tracked 20 million U.S. phones to monitor your COVID protocols, whether you were comporting with the lockdowns in America. CDC, government entity. Are you moving? Are you abiding by our lockdown orders? It's only going to be 15 days. 3 weeks. 3 months. It keeps going on and on and on. Ridiculous. And they were monitoring you. They bought the data. They wanted to see if you were compliant. Mr. MVP also sharing this story. Says Hunter Biden laptop repairman sues Schiff, CNN, Politico, and the Daily Beast. And he's doing it with style too. Look at that hat. But I saw that headline. I've not taken a look at the actual article yet, but thanks for the share. Mr. MVP is also talking about a link over at the Free Thought Project. Grouchy Old Cat Lady on the leaked SCOTUS opinion says they are trying to find any reason to recuse the Supreme Court justices. After the SCOTUS leak, Tuesday's hearing was set to focus on proposals to update the law about recusal of justices. Yeah, they're going after Clarence Thomas and his wife. They're going to try to impeach people. They're in like level 10 epic meltdown. The Antikiss is here, says, may the 4th be with You, aggregation thread. And may the 4th be with you, Vance Kiss, and everybody else out there celebrating the Star Wars holiday today. Three Girlies is here, says, Judge orders Fusion GPS tech expert to testify in Clinton's attorney trial. And yes, that is, I think, Laura Sago, right? Yes, here it is. U.S. District Judge Christopher Cooper on May 3rd granted Special Counsel Durham's motion to unseal his petition to compel Fusion GPS tech maven Laura Sago to testify when trial begins on May 16th. And I have her here in the mind map. She is down here, Laura Sago. I couldn't find her photograph. Couldn't find Jake Berkowitz either, but these are people that are all sort of in the same hula hoop on the Sussmann trial. So that's going to be fun to cover. Thanks for sharing that, Three Girlies. Viantic is talking about one of the most important things you can be working on right now is building an electrically isolated digital library, if not a physical library, movies, music, books, and ebooks. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I'm still somebody who likes to sort of get copies of both if I can find the space for it. I have a lot of books that I haven't actually opened, but I have the digital version. But I just sort of like the idea that what's written in there is immutable. You can't change it. On a Kindle or an ebook or an Amazon book, they just, we don't want that page in there anymore. We don't want that information in there anymore. And so I think that hard copies are good. I also have just a huge cache of files of just everything that I've collected over the years that is, survival stuff and thousands of pages of documents in a thumb drive that I think is useful. I think stuff like that is important to check in on from time to time. Make sure you've got data. Knowledge is very powerful. Cat Crap Fever is here, says, today would have been my dad's 83rd birthday. Happy birthday, Cat Crap Fever's dad. He died October 2017. I was not his favorite daughter. I know he loved me, but he certainly didn't like me. This song makes me think of him. And I'm not sure what song you're sharing, Cat Crap Fever, but it sounds like you're having a nice memory. I'm sure he did love you. I'm sure he did like you. And maybe you were his favorite daughter. You never know. Some of those things are not always as intuitive as they may feel, but it sounds like you're remembering your father. Happy 83rd birthday to your dad. May he rest in peace. Jeremy's here is saying, I found an interview from 2 years ago that helps to understand how propaganda works, and it may help to better decipher information. This is over on YouTube.
It's great.
We've got Putin, How Propaganda Works by Peter P. Pomerantsev. And so go check that out, of course. Grouchy Old Cat Lady says, let's be kind to our kids. This will teach kids to hate family members, talking about anti-racism and fist book story. DC Elementary School gave 4-year-olds anti-racism fist book, asking them to identify racist family members. That's fun. Good conversations. More from Mr. MVP and others. Thanks everybody for your support over there. And we've got some YouTube member comments. I appreciate everybody joining up and supporting the work that we do there. You can click that join button. If you want to leave a comment, you'll show up here when I check, but we've got a few. Bullgator team commenting on yesterday's video about Roe versus Wade says, another excellent job, timely, complete with the first draft in hand. I'm amazed at how women are so outraged they cannot terminate their child in the womb and so proud of it. I guess we need a biologist to explain the end results. Yeah, it's a complicated issue, especially when you introduce genders into this whole complexity. It's a couple more from Bonnie Speck says, thank you for explaining the issue. You filled in the blanks about Hillary's hats being made in the USA, but are all the raw materials sourced in the USA? Big difference. And yesterday I was poking fun at Hillary. She's had like 2 tweets back to back. She's like, I'm outraged. Women are going to be dropping dead all over America, you racist Republicans. And then she had another one that was even worse. Like they're going to be doing even worse deaths and more horror. And then the next one was, please buy a tote bag or a hat if you'd like. $35. I'm fighting for you. Made in USA. Right. We have one from Bonnie says there's another option of how this was leaked. A computer was hacked by an outside entity. It could be also very true, Bonnie. I'm not sure what their internal security protocols are. I wonder if they're even, using digital documents, really. I don't know. Egerd is here, says, my daughter was born at 22 weeks and she's now 34 and the most amazing person on this planet. Well, shout out to EAGRD's daughter for being 34 and being amazing and being alive and here with us. We have another one, says, the Biden team does not command respect with their negative policies. They're wrecking our great nation. This is from Bullgator. Behind closed doors, the staff can salute and bow so long as no one else can observe the same and their egos can be calmed. Can this be a serious topic on Meet the Press? So the press is really indulging a lot of these anti-Biden, anti-Kamala stories, which is new. You know, this is not something that we used to see a lot of until very recently. There was a sort of a flip that got switched when they realized there's going to be some serious consequences for the entire Democratic Party that may not be recoverable. They started to distance themselves. And yeah, Meet the Press had a couple authors on there to kind of poke fun at Kamala Harris. Apparently, Biden staffers won't stand up when she walks in the room. She walks in and they play the vice president music. And the Biden's team, they're just like, what? What do you want? We're busy. And Kamala's like, I'm the vice president. You should be standing for me. So she goes back to her office. You're not going to believe what they did over there. What'd they do, Kamala? Well, they didn't stand up for me. Well, do you want them to? Well, yes. How else will I know that I'm important? So he said, all right, I'll call them. So he picks up the phone. You're not going to believe this, what this woman wants. She wants you to stand up. And it got so heated that apparently it got back to people at the Biden team and they put it in a book. That's what's happening there. We have Deborah Yunker says the tide is turning in this country, due for a big red wave coming. Put on your life jackets. The water is about to get real choppy. I agree with you, Deborah. I don't disagree. I think it's true. Especially if you're a Democrat. It's going to be bumpy waters, man. And it has been for the last couple of weeks. We've had, I mean, Trump didn't get indicted for his grand jury. Elon bought Twitter. It's just amazing. We got Nicholas Vasil is here, says disinfo czar looks like a nut job. Yeah, I'm certain she is. Take a close look. Mega nut job. Mayorkas is such a tool. Can you imagine if Mayorkas and Mega nut job had a child? It would be the end of all things. Well, I think that there maybe that's how these two got together. Mayorkas is out now saying, I didn't know anything about those wacky videos, where she's saying it's really quite precocious. And I have a different theory on this. I think that old Mayorkas was sitting there on TikTok and he was scrolling through. And you know that For You page on TikTok, it's pretty convenient. It serves you some good stuff. Mayorkas is into disinformation. He's into government authority. He's into the limitations on free speech. He's DHS secretary. So he's just flipping through here and boom, Singin' Jankowicz shows up and she sings a literal song about disinformation. Mayorkas, I don't know what his marital status is or what he enjoys, but I'm sure he was very excited about that. And he said, heart, follow, comment, like, share, all of it. I need to meet this woman. Get her in here. And that's who's in charge now. Bonnie says, is she AOC's sister? They kind of look alike and they certainly act alike. You Watcher says we literally have a national Karen running a Karen department, which is true. Yeah, that's Singin' Jankowicz. And we have Bonnie says, that's what you get for not letting your wife help choose the vice president. Melanie sat in with all the Trump interviews and she liked Mike Pence, which is why we got Mike Pence. Biden got Kamala because Biden doesn't really know much of anything. And they were cramming this all together and sort of shoving him from one room to another, one podium to another. Kamala is your vice president. She doesn't know what she's doing either. And we can manipulate her too. So that's just how it all worked out. And here we are. Bonnie Speck says, I want to know if they allowed a BLM flag. How about the Sons of Confederacy flag? It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, Bonnie. We talked about that in the Christian flag. Supreme Court came out saying that what Boston did to preclude the Christians from flying their flag when they let 50 other flags fly was unconstitutional. And I think it was a good ruling. We covered that in depth. And that, my friends, are some of those amazing comments from our supporters on YouTube. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to join up, there's a button right next to that subscribe button that says join. When you leave comments, they show up here in this kind of special queue, and I'll do my very best to get to them. And I really do appreciate the support and all the comments on the videos. And that, my friends, is it for the headlines on this lovely Wednesday. I appreciate all the stories that you're sharing on Locals. Thanks for the support there and on YouTube. We're going to be back here with more tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.